Tanvir, you're fucking weird.
I know I am. We're all weird in our own ways.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the State of Wrestling Address, brought to you by the Wrestle Plug podcast. You might be watching on YouTube. You might be listening via wherever you get your podcast, but we thank you for joining us. I am the Egyptian Death Machine, Aeron Nix, the King of Shithousery and the Master of Piss Artistry. Joining me this week, back after a very small hiatus, of course, because we weren't here last week, is the wonderful man who puts wood in Bollywood, Tanvir Verdi.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Pleasure to have you, sir. And of course, joining us is the one half of Silent and the Death Machine. He's the silent portion of said podcast. You can check that out every single Wednesday on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. He is, of course, the masterful MC of Odyssey Pro Wrestling and the host of Coliseum Pro Wrestling. He is, of course, Silent Mark.
Hello. Thank you for having me again.
Marvelous. Right, let's get to it. There's a little bit of news, bit of a slow news week, so we'll basically inject our usual brand of bullshittery and fun in between the articles. Let's start with the fact that William Regal has pretty much been confirmed. He's on his way back to WWE. Very brief run in AEW. He only just helped MJF, of course, capture the AEW World Championship at their last pay-per-view, I believe, which was Full Gear. And then, of course, MJF turned on him on AEW television, hitting him with the brass knucks. And that's their way of writing him out. A lot of rumors surrounding it, of course. The main reason probably because he wants to work with his son, Charlie Dempsey, who's now in NXT. William Regal going back to WWE. Good for WWE, obviously. Is it a hit for AEW?
I think so in a maturity wise, because I remember ages ago when we were first talking about AEW that they needed that kind of buffer person to like micromanage things and to be okay. So I think William Regal would have very much been in that role, and now he's gone. It's gonna be back to the norm of AEW of every week there's gonna be a new signing, and it's just gonna be chaos.
Absolutely.
You want someone like Regal who will put a good show together and get good storylines in. It's the reason why NXT UK was doing so well and NXT was doing so well, was because he was behind it. When he left, it's kind of when it went downhill.
Yeah, he definitely was a part of it. There's a number of people working on it. Shawn Michaels, I believe, headed up NXT UK overall, but obviously William Regal, with the level of knowledge he has, with the passion he has for the business, and also the serious nature of who he is. He has a lot of credibility that goes beyond just being a good name in our business. I don't think it's bad for AEW. I think once again, it's another loss. I don't think he's left because he hates AEW or anything like that. He's solely left because he wants to work, WWE. He's obviously very close friends with Triple H. A lot of people don't realize that Triple H was actually alongside him in his original run in WCW when they came out as the Regal kind of kings of sorts, the pomposity, the sort of like looking down everyone's noses with the robes and stuff like that. That's actually where Triple H kind of really first got notoriety on a mainstream wrestling platform. Along with Terror Rising, state of it.
Yeah, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, right? When he was still...
Well, yeah, that gimmick was spawned out of his time with Regal in WCW. That's what people don't remember about that. But obviously, he had an incredible part in the main NXT brand, especially, much more so than NXT UK. He was the general manager on screen. Once Dusty Rhodes sadly passed away, he was, he's infamous for War Games and all these different things. But he really helped bring glue to that product. So I'm really hoping when he comes back that he will be used as the on-screen general manager again, because I don't really have a very credible authority source that people like on NXT television right now, even though NXT, of course, Deadline's coming up this weekend. There is the possibility we could see him at Deadline.
I'm amazed that out of everybody, it's like, yeah, William Regal's so good, but why they don't approach Finlay to be that kind of on-screen authority figure as well?
Finley's never been particularly strong on the mic, if you ask me. He's okay.
That's true.
I think one of the big things about Finley is that he's heading up training a lot of the women's division as well. And he's one of the main reasons why the women's evolution kicked off as well. No, not AEW's women apparently motivating WWE's women to be good. Shut the fuck up, Adam Wessex. But it's one of those things where It's good for business for WWE. It's another feather in their cap as they're building great storylines. They really feel like they've got their shit together right now. And AEW, it's just another loss, and it's another negative against a company that is really proving to be very frustrating at times. All jokes and vitriol aside, I want AEW to put on a good product, and they just seem to be making a lot of mistakes. Case in point, the fallout from All Out, as they're calling it, with the fights, the backstage nonsense. Is it a work? Will CM Punk come back? We don't know. If it is a work, then they've done actually a fantastic job. If it's not a work, then they've done a horrible fucking job, and it's been bad for business all round. Then, of course, the fact that FTR finally are getting their tag team title shot tonight against the Sesame Daddy Gang. The Acclaimed defending the tag team titles against FTR finally tonight on Dynamite. Tanvir, do you see FTR capturing the AEW Tag Team Championships and completing the quadruple nature of holding 4 different prominent tag team titles?
I don't see it happening because I think the Acclaimed are just too good right now, and I reckon there's going to be shenanigans. I'll be like, oh yeah, FTR will come close, but then shenanigans will happen, and it will lead FTR into the next feud. It wouldn't be Aussie Open or anything appearing because World Tag League's still going on. So, but I reckon there'll be some shenanigans from a different tag team or something. Can't pinpoint who, as there's too many goddamn tag teams, but some. Wait, because I'm trying to think. I think this Saturday's Final Battle, ROH. And with FTR being the tag team, the ROH tag team champions, I don't know if they have any challenges set up Final Battle, but I reckon if the tag team that will face them at Final Battle will get involved in this match and then set out a challenge or something.
Well, Mark, you I don't know how much you know about AEW or what you watch of it, but FTR, you're aware of those guys and what they do?
I'm not. No, I've not watched much AEW. Because nothing got me hooked. The only thing that really kind of pushed me towards it are people who I used to like in WWE going there. I don't care as much as I should. Although I do want to see. I keep calling her Paige. It's Saraya, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saraya, yeah, that's what
Saraya,
she's called. Yeah, because
yeah.
they use.
I want to see her wrestle again, which she has done. Has she done that yet?
She wrestled Britt Baker, I think, last month.
She wrestled once in her return. I think she's wrestled since. I think it's going to be a very limited deal with her in terms of wrestling. I think you'll probably see her, arguably, you'll be lucky if you see her just only wrestling pay-per-views, I think. I'd be very surprised if they throw her out on Dynamite or Rampage every week.
Do you reckon she'll come back to WWE?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think she's very divisive, Paige / Saraya. She's very Marmite-like in a lot of people's eyes now. You either love her and cherish her for what she is, especially if you're British. A lot of people see her as kind of like the standout. But now you got Jamie Hayter in that position as AEW Women's Champion. I feel like she's now the prominent British women's wrestler.
Yeah.
And I think that Saraya's got a lot of work to do if she wants to catch up to her in terms of in-ring quality. And I don't really think that Saraya's that good on the mic either. I know a lot of people think she's this incredible talker. I think she's very weak, actually. She's a bit whiny, a little bit screechy. There's nothing wrong with that if it works to your gimmick, but there's so many things that come with her baggage, the Night Family, the film. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, obviously. There's obviously toxic relationships with past wrestlers. Drugs have been thrown around and all that kind of stuff. And not to mention, obviously, her lack of in-ring fitness and inability to wrestle for the most part. Yeah, she had a great match against Britt Baker, all things considered, but nothing spectacular. I think that she would benefit. I mean, AEW need her anyway, and I believe they've signed her to a 3-year contract, so she's not going back anytime soon. It's going to be at least 2.5 to 3 years before you see her on WWE television. One thing she does have going for her is she's still incredibly young. I think she's still only like 26, 27. So theoretically, if she stays healthy and looks after herself, yeah, sure, you could see her maybe 5-10 years down the line. If AEW collapses for whatever reason, God forbid, she'll probably definitely end up back there, especially now that Vince is gone. But I don't know. I don't know. She reminds me of CM Punk. She's definitely got star power, but every single time she's in the news, more often than not, it's for something negative. It's never for something overly positive. And for that reason, if I'm WWE, I don't need her anyway. You've got Bianca Belair, you've got Asuka, Io Sky, Becky Lynch. You know, the list goes on. Charlotte Flair's yet to come back from a hiatus.
The thing is, WWE Women's Division is fucking tremendous when you look at the talent they've got.
Yeah. It's the best in the world.
Which again, people would think even 10 years ago, they wouldn't be that invested. A woman's match would be a filler rather than a main event. And I think it's fucking wonderful now.
Yeah. And here's the thing as well, and I just want to shout out that Bianca Belair, given the WWE schedule, able to get in shape for a bodybuilding competition. Fucking insane.
Yeah, she's always been in amazing shape anyway. But
but to get in
astonishing.
To get into like bodybuilder competition shape on a WWE schedule while being the women's champ is goddamn like just mind blowing.
That's what makes her, in my opinion, the best women's wrestler in the world.
She's fucking nice.
Yeah,
I'll be amazed if anyone picks anyone other than her at our end of year awards. I really will. Don't get me wrong; it'll be cool to hear arguments for other women, but for me, I think Bianca Belair has blown away the competition this year.
It's like Io Sky is my favorite women's wrestler right now, but for women's wrestler of the year, it's Bianca Belair.
That's because you've got a hard on for Japanese, isn't it?
Nah,
you've been watching hentai again, haven't you?
No, it's just the moonsault and how fluid she is in the ring, and just how effortlessly she makes everything look.
Yeah.
He's just now thinking about her ass, and that's all he can get.
I'm
sick and tired of you objectifying women on this podcast, Tanvir.
Dirty boy.
Dirty boy. Dirty boy.
Sorry, dads.
With that in mind, Rhea Ripley.
On a very quick side note, I can confirm that Tanvir has finally watched Blues Brothers. What did you think?
Oh, loved it. I was messaging you like key moments. You're like, what are we talking about? And I was like, it's Blues Brothers. And he's like, oh yeah, it was great. I loved it.
It's fucking nice.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's like you said when listening to the cover. It's when Owen's like, I just need to turn off it, and you just see the police cars one after another. I'm like, just add a couple more, and then that's it, done.
For the longest time, the Guinness Book of World Records holder for the most cars involved in a car chase in cinematic history.
I loved it.
Extra points for which film beat it?
I forget you mentioned it before, but
I did know this.
It's not Expendables or something, right?
It's G.I. Joe Cobra.
That's it.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, nobody's going to watch that.
I also love their diner orders of like how Elwood's is just white toast, dry, and then you have Jake with 4 fried chickens and a Coke. It's like, that sums up their characters very well.
Yeah, I've got a poster upstairs. It's like a metal plate, those really cool metallic posters you can get, and it's got them both sat at a bar with their orders. So it's just very cool stuff like that. No, it's pretty awesome. We mentioned tag teams. I mean, the PWI 504 tag teams dropped this week. I think it came out Monday. The team that topped this list, now I should point out before we get into debates about it, the PWI list is semi-kayfabe. So what it's based upon is televised appearances, win and loss record, which of course plays into kayfabe, quality of opponents, title reigns, everything else that goes with it. So number 1 was the Usos, the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. Number 2 were the AAR, IWGP, and Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, FTR. The Briscoe Brothers were number 3, which I was very pleased to see. Death Triangle, interesting, as a trio, were number 4, which I don't agree with. Fukuoka, Double Crazy, which is Hazuki and Kaguma, were number 5. RK Bro were number 6. 7 was the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Number 8 was the Young Bucks. Number 9 was the Hex, Allison Kay and Marty Bell, who are, of course, a stable of NWA. And Violence is Forever, which is Kevin Koo and Dominic Guarini, were number 10. Aussie Open were just picked out of the top 10. They were number 11, with the other 2 members of the United Empire, Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan, at number 12. Street Profits 13. The only other notable women's tag team that were in there at number 14 were Toxic Attraction, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Sasha Banks and Naomi, interestingly, were number 19. Do we think that they got it right having the Usos at number 1?
They're hot at the moment.
Yeah.
You can't not.
Yeah. Off the top of my head from this current reign, I can't think of like any like notable matches from off the top of my head, but just for the storyline that they've been working, incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Most of their notable matches do involve the bloodline, or they're not necessarily straight tag team matches. That being said, their match with RK Bro to unify the tag team titles was excellent. They've had incredible matches with the Street Profits, including at SummerSlam, I believe. The New Day, once again, they renewed that rivalry to basically capture the longest ever reign when they beat the New Day. The New Day were the final team that could have stopped them because obviously the New Day held the original reign. I definitely think that their body of work as wrestling matches hasn't been as good as it was, say, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when they really were lights out and destroying pretty much everybody and had that incredible initial rivalry with the New Day, including the Hell in a Cell match. But like you say, the red hot, and it's down to televised appearances. PWI were actually asked why FTR weren't number one, because that caused a lot of outrage with multitudes of people within and outside of the business. They responded by saying that one of the main reasons they didn't get to number one is because they have not held the most prominent tag team titles that they actually have the chance to win. Ironically, they have the chance to win them tonight, the AEW World Tag Team titles. Do you think that's a good enough reason as to why FTR haven't been put on top?
If you're going on kayfabe and on things like that, then yeah, titles mean something.
You can't be the best tag team in the world if you can't win your own tag team titles, can you?
Exactly.
Plus, with all due respect, the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships, the AAAR Tag Team Championships, and the IWGP Tag Team Championships do not have nearly as much prominence as the high-end North American titles like WWE and AEW. They just don't. IWGP could be argued, but then how many times have they defended those belts over the past year? How many times have they defended? Exactly, twice? That's not very good, is it? They use those have defended the tag team titles. It's easily double figures.
Yeah, because FTR won the belts at Forbidden Door, which I think was back in June, July. And then they didn't have their first defense until Royal Quest, which was October 1st. So about a 3-month gap between their title win and their first title defense.
They've definitely had the best tag team title match of the year when they faced the Briscoes. That was easily, for me, the best match. That's my match of the year. But at the same time, we're not talking about one moment. We're talking about a body of work over an entire year. Yeah. And a lot. Do you know what? People moaning about how they're not top. Maybe you want to have a look inside your own fucking greenhouse, because it's AEW that book them the way they do. And they've obviously booked them to be somewhat afterthoughts in a tag team division where they should be ludicrously prominent.
Yeah. It's like you've got your 3 to 4 main tag teams there that you should build the division around. Lucha Brothers, FTR, Young Bucks, and one other tag team who I can't think of the top of my head. But it's just AEW with FTR, since they've come in, they haven't really done a lot to kind of solidify, these are our guys, because it's mainly been Dax and singles matches for the most part.
Yeah, I'm looking through the list. The Acclaimed are number 20. That for me is a massive oversight. They've been one of the hottest tag teams predominantly throughout this entire year, and they've got a very good body of work. Interestingly enough, Swerve and Our Glory are above them. Sasha Banks and Naomi being above them is somewhat insulting when you consider that they haven't been on TV for the best part of 4 or 5 months now.
Yeah.
So, this is why you should really take this list with a pinch of salt. Also, one thing, number 35 of the Arrows of Hungary, which I'm incredibly pleased about.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're so 2 of my best friends and 2 people who are on this podcast. They gave a lot of time to me, and I obviously spent quite a bit of time following them and Rev Pro, and when they were coming over here and working the main sort of British scene, as well as obviously Europe. They've had runs with WXW as well recently, where they were the WXW Tag Team Champions this year. It's nice to see them in there. And it's, to be honest, when I look at lists like this, I don't try and get bogged down with who's who. Sunshine Machine are number 24, Chuck Manville, TK Cooper. That's very exciting to me. Representing our country so well, doing incredible things for Progress and Rev Pro, amongst other things. They've been really branching out, wrestling in places like Denmark and stuff like that. So, for me, that's more a triumph of how good wrestling is across the board, across the world, more so than us getting bogged down with, it's either FTR or the Usos. Yeah, that's great. Like, to be honest, it's a list that doesn't really mean that much. Also, Kenny Omega took to Twitter to celebrate and said that the Usos were, in his mind, rightful winners and deserved to be winners. So, about time Kenny Omega said something sensible. So yeah, pretty much. Any other thoughts on it?
Just looking through it now, and yeah, I'm okay with it, to be honest.
Pretty Deadly at number 43.
Oh, who's that? Oh yeah, Pretty Deadly.
Pretty Deadly, yeah, they're number 43. The Guns are number 60, Violent by Design are 61.
Oh,
North, the OTT Tag Team Champions.
Cool to see
62, who myself and Mark have obviously been on a show with, which is very cool.
Cool to see a Stinger at 56, Ridgeway and Yoshinori Ogawa.
Yes, yeah, I can just imagine how fucking stiff those matches are. Jesus Christ.
Earlier this year in Noah, I think they did Chris Ridgeway v Katsuhiko Nakajima. Fucking the kicks in that they were like killing each other.
It's just basically more combat, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Pretty much. It pretty much was.
Yeah, there's some interesting ones here. The Bollywood boys are in there at 95.
Okay. Creed Brothers 77.
Yeah, Milk Chocolate is a great name for a tag team, by the way, for Brandon Watson.
I just saw that.
Yeah, big fans of those boys. A team actually that stands out to me is Atropa Suenos, Dolce Gadenina, Espiritu Negro, and Rey Cometa, who obviously wrestle in Mexico. They're just fucking phenomenal, those guys. If you want to see true great trios, high octane matches, they're definitely ones you need to check out.
That's a cool number 74, Commonwealth Connection, Doug Williams and Harry Smith.
Yeah, I mean, when you look down the list, it's a who's who of wrestling still, and it's nice that there is a predominant amount of, well, not predominant, but there is a decent level of women's wrestling tag teams in here as well. Not entirely sure whether it's a good idea to mix them in. By the way, the 0121, Man Like Darius and Dan Maloney are currently at 45, another real great advertisement for British independent wrestling. So,
look at number 46. I'm not going to comment on that.
The Twin Towers, Kohei Sato and Shinji Ishikawa. Why would you not want to comment on that?
Neither of you are allowed to comment on that.
Are we implying that India has offered its own level of culture to the land of, shall we say, more explosive elements?
It's just brown.
I mean, Delhi Belly.
He's brown. Spoken like a true northerner, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful stuff.
Bussy.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Well, you mentioned Ring of Honor final battle. There are only 5 matches on tap as we currently speak, but of course, Dynamite is tonight. So we'll have a very, very quick look at it and offer up what we think may happen or our quick predictions. I have to say, I actually really like the look of the card as it stands right now. Swerve and Our Glory, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee will face Shane Taylor and JD Griffey in a straight up tag team match.
I don't know who JD Griffey is, but this just screams big meaty hoss fight between Keith Lee and Shane Taylor.
Yeah, Keith Lee and Shane Taylor would be a great tag team by themselves.
They were a tag team, I think, like 6-7 years ago, because I think Shane Taylor even referenced it of saying, like, yeah, years ago we were a tag team, and then you abandoned me for NXT.
Yeah, he went for the money. Absolutely. Any choice there, SilentMark?
I don't know either of them. I don't know either of the teams, so no.
I mean, I'd assume Swerve and Our Glory because they're the prominent tag team from AEW. They won the AEW tag team titles this year. They're big names, aren't they? For the Ring of Honor World Television Championship, Juice Robinson challenges Samoa Joe.
This screams like an old school NXT match.
Yeah.
Because
it's an old school NXT match.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Samoa Joe, but I think Juice is gonna have a good showing.
Yeah, I'd go with the same on that.
Yeah, I'd say Joe. I don't think it makes sense. Although Juice Robinson has all the capabilities and skills to be the television champion. Mercedes Martinez defends the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship against Athena, who obviously some people might recognize as Ember Moon from WWE NXT. Do we see a title change there?
I hope so. I genuinely adored her back in the day. when she was in WWE, and I just wanted to carry on going further.
I love both these women, but I'm gonna go for Athena.
I mean, I don't. I mean, the Ring of Honor product is non-existent, really. It's AEW. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So for me, it's very difficult to sit here and sort of talk to the storylines as much because the storylines are embedded in AEW television because I don't think they have a weekly Ring of Honor show anymore, courtesy of because Sinclair Broadcasting, because it was bought by Tony Khan. Daniel Garcia defends the Ring of Honor Pure Championship against Wheeler Yuta.
I think this is their third match, and I'm gonna say Daniel Garcia to retain.
I don't care, if I'm being honest.
That's fair. It'll be a banger match, but I get what you mean.
They're just really two great wrestlers. They don't offer anything other than, hey, we're really good at the wrestles. Neither of them are good promos. They don't really have gimmicks. Wheeler Yuta is part of Blackpool Combat Club, which is probably dead now, if we're being honest, especially now that Regal was going back to WWE because he was kind of the glue that held that together. And obviously with Moxley being dethroned as well. So yeah, I don't really give a shit. I'll say Wheeler Yuta just because I know that Tony Khan has a massive chubby for the guy. The main event, as it stands right now, is Chris Jericho defending the Ring of Honor World Championship against formerly Cesaro, now known as Claudio Castagnoli. If Castagnoli loses, he will have to join the Jericho Appreciation Society, which is that awful faction on AEW.
Well, that'll happen then, won't it?
I hope Claudio wins because the thing is, this storyline has been going on for so fucking long, and it's the one thing that Tony Khan needs to learn. You don't need to do such long-term storytelling with Jericho every single feud because it gets too fucking long and annoying and boring and no one cares.
What do we think about the fact that the pay-per-view takes place the same time as WWE NXT's Deadline, which we're about to preview, and UFC 282? Is that good or bad for business?
Terrible idea.
Bad. Especially with it being UFC 282.
Yeah.
Let me see. I want to get the card for UFC 282 quick. See who's fighting.
UFC 282 is headlined by Blachowicz and Ankalaev for the World Light Heavyweight Championship.
I mean, you've got Paddy Pimblay on the card as well.
Oh, he's fucking shit. I love that guy.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't profess to be a pretty big UFC fan. I'm one of these marks who jumps in and watches Conor McGregor or whatever. But unless it's a high-end fighter, I don't really pay much attention. I'll probably watch Paddy's fight and that'll be it. But it's that thing of it does have a very big market, particularly in the United States. I believe it's taking place in the United States. Yep, it's in Paradise, Nevada, United States, at the T-Mobile Arena. So yeah, it's
yeah. And
what do you say? Bad. I personally think it's bad for business.
Yes, that was awful for business.
And the thing is as well with NXT, it's got the Iron Survivor, so that's going to make things feel fresh, and people are going to have their eyes on that. So it's like, why should I really care about Final Battle when I've seen Daniel Garcia v Wheeler Yuta, or I've seen Chris Jericho v Claudio Castagnoli? There's only like 2 matches that stand out to me right now, and it's Samoa Joe v Juice Robinson and Mercedes Martinez v Athena.
Yeah, and also I think that WWE NXT's card is a better card. And let's not forget, a lot of WWE and wrestling fans in general do watch UFC because UFC has really lent on the sports entertainment stuff a lot more. Their fighters tend to engage in a lot more backstage nonsense and promos. Conor McGregor, it's long gone is the pure art of fighting. And Ring of Honor advertises itself as, more pure wrestling than anything as opposed to storylines. So for the casual fan who wants to see entertainment-based stuff, Ring of Honor comes in at a very strong, a very weak, shall we say, 3rd place behind the other 2, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not something I'll probably check out. I just don't have the time. And most of us aren't going to watch all of it. So we're going to cherry pick what we want to watch. And like you say, NXT has the draw of a brand new match type. It has stars that are a little bit more credible. And also it is legitimately I know it's part of WWE, but it is legitimately a well-built storyline based wrestling show as opposed to Ring of Honor, which is essentially now a feeder program for AEW.
The other thing as well that I think NXT will have over Final Battle is the length, because NXT is usually only 2.5 hours long. 2.5 hours long. final battle, I reckon, will be one of the usual like AEW things where it'll go on for far too long, like 4 hours. Because, like you said, we still got a Dynamite and a Rampage to get through, so there's probably going to be like a few more matches added. It'll end up being far too long.
Touching on something that SilentMark mentioned earlier, apparently we're not allowed to talk about the Twin Towers. However, Mustafa Ali rather prominently mentioned 9/11 this week.
Did he?
Yes, he did. Monday afternoon, Ali posted a video to Twitter explaining why the United States Championship means so much to him. Some people might recognize that he's been embroiled as kind of like the bitch of the United States title scene, getting walloped around by Lashley and Rollins and Theory, amongst others. He also wrestled Theory this week on Raw. In it, he acknowledged that over the past few weeks, the crowd reaction to him has not been boisterous, with some fans possibly giving up on him in WWE due to his booking the past few years, a major factor in him asking for his release from the company earlier in the year. Following that, Ali, who is a Pakistani American, called back to a moment in his classroom from 9/11, one of the darkest days in American history, when a series of terrorist attacks against the United States left thousands dead. The teachers thought it would be best to let the students talk and express their emotions, Ali said. I remember raising my hand and saying, I can't believe this happened to us. The kid in front of me turns around and says, us? What are you talking about? Your people did this. I looked around at the class. I looked at the teacher. I was hoping someone would say something to help me or defend me. No one said anything. Despite being born here in this country, despite being an American, I'm not American enough. To me, the United States Championship means I belong. What do you think about that?
I think it's just a great promo.
That is a good promo. It's a big fucking conversation.
It is a big conversation. It's one that I've had many times.
It's the one thing that I like with Ali, in that the thing is, he adds like a realism in his promos, and it's like he's talking like at you and letting you know, like he's telling you a story. Yeah. So I think that's a really good story. And I think if anything, I think what will happen is come Royal Rumble, because they usually do it, I think Ali will eliminate Austin Theory to kind of have that big moment of like, hey, he eliminated the US champ. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Swinging right back to Ring of Honor again, as we kind of jump around on these tangents. Tony Khan mentioned Ring of Honor on the Battleground podcast. He was asked to discuss what he thought of people's opinions that there was too much Ring of Honor featured on AEW television. One thing I've tried to do, I think we only have 3 hours of AEW TV a week, so I've tried to limit. What do you mean you think? You must know that. So I've tried to limit the Ring of Honor focus on Dynamite to the Ring of Jericho concept. I saw somebody saying they thought there was too much Ring of Honor and Dynamite, and I thought that was amusing because there's almost no Ring of Honor and Dynamite in recent weeks except Chris Jericho, and frankly, Chris Jericho should be on any wrestling show in the world he wants to be on. Khan announced that he purchased Ring of Honor in March of this year. The AEW boss said that in recent weeks he's instead tried to keep Ring of Honor mostly confined to Rampage. On Rampage, we have had a variety of Ring of Honor wrestlers and its new wrestlers for AEW fans. And I think that's going to be good for our business because these pay-per-view shows Ring of Honor has done have been really successful for us. We've made good money and the grosses of those shows have been in line for what I paid for the entire business. So I would say it's been a very successful relaunch. Tanvir, do you agree with that statement?
Nope, because they don't have a TV deal and there's too many people signed. And the thing is, you're having Samoa Joe on Dynamite, you're having Daniel Garcia as well, FTR. So to Tony Khan saying, oh, he's not featuring ROH a lot on Dynamite, you're featuring about 4 of the champs on the program, and every now and again you have Ian Riccaboni on commentary, and he's the ROH commentator. So for Tony Khan to say there's not a lot of ROH on Dynamite, I think is quite idiotic.
Quite disingenuous, if you ask me. I think he's just flat out lying, which is, we all can see the product for ourselves. SilentMark, do you think with Ring of Honor not having its own TV deal on a weekly TV show, do you think he's kind of in a box where he's not really got any choice? He has to, if he's going to have Ring of Honor pay-per-views, he's got to have them featured somewhere. Yeah. So in some ways, he's kind of in a catch-22.
If he's going to make the money, he needs to make people care about Ring of Honor. And to get people to care about Ring of Honor, they need to see it in the wider world. It's what you need.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good argument because it's one of those things where he's lying basically on the podcast, but at the same time, he could easily come out and say, "Well, where else am I going to put them?"
Yeah.
They have to be on TV to be prominent to a certain degree until we can sort out a TV deal. If I was him, I would get rid of one of the AEW Darks or Elevation, make Ring of Honor a weekly TV show.
I was just gonna say that, like, get rid of Dark and Dark Elevation and just put ROH on the.
They average about 500,000 to 1 million views, depending on who they have on it. So if they actually turned it into a full-on Ring of Honor style television product, hire out a small hall or, somewhere a little bit, less kind of vibrant and explosive and massive, because Ring of Honor is just on its own not going to sell 16,000 tickets weekly. It's just not. It's not going to have audiences like Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite. Have it in a smaller arena, like an NXT Performance Center sized arena, and just record it every week on YouTube, because the bottom line is I don't need to see 15 random indie talents, even if I like them or I've covered them on the Wrestle Plug, which has been the case. We saw Connor Mills, for instance, the UK wrestler. He was on AEW Dark. So was I forgot his name now, the Irish lad from OTT.
LJ
Cleary, that's the one.
You've interviewed him, haven't you?
I have interviewed him, yeah. So it's quite shameful that I don't remember. Lovely guy. Obviously left the lasting impression. No, I love LJ Cleary. He's wonderful. Part of course, More Than Hype, who were awesome in OTT. Sadly now split up. I like you say, I just think nobody who really cares about wrestling cares about Elevation or Dark. So you know what? Use that, because that would be far cooler.
Would you say, in terms of a smaller venue, if they were going to do an ROH, why not use Daly's Place? Would you think Daly's Place would be an appropriate size for like an ROH? Or
I mean, it's a good basis. The problem is that obviously, if you're not one of the AEW based Ring of Honor talents, it's going to be a lot more faff, isn't it, for you to travel? But then Tony Khan has also proved that he has access to unlimited money essentially, and is happy to throw it at the company, so he probably doesn't give a shit. But like, he's come out and said on this interview, one of the lines that was really prominent to me was that the grossing money that they're making off of Ring of Honor pay-per-views is in line with what he paid. I can't believe for a second they're making huge sums of money from those pay-per-views. So he must not have paid a great deal for Ring of Honor as an overall product. That's what stands out to me. Any final thoughts?
He sounds like a dick.
Yeah.
Tony Khan. Yeah. Do you know what? It comes across as, I think it's one of these things where he's probably a nice guy, but he's not a wrestling guy. And that's not necessarily always a bad thing, because a lot of people who work in wrestling are arseholes, myself included. But it's that thing of, I would take you more seriously if you didn't look like a petulant child playing with all these shiny toys all the time. That's kind of how it comes across. He reminds me of that Futurama episode where that alien captures the Star Trek cast and forces them into like death games and stupid games. He's like, Mom, I'm playing with my collectibles. That's kind of how it feels with Tony Khan. He feels like a petulant twat.
There's one or two of those in the UK as well, to be honest.
Yes, there is, yeah.
He reminds me of Andy in Toy Story 2 when he throws in the dream sequence where he's throwing away Woody, and he's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. He's like, oh, I've got this new shiny toy, buy old toy. And it's just rinse and repeat every week, it feels.
And in this analogy, Woody is CM Punk.
And the new toy is AR Fox, because they just signed him.
I mean, he had a great match with Samoa Joe last week, but it's that thing of AR Fox is not going to draw you a massive amount of money ever. Like, he's just not. There's nothing against AR Fox. I love him. I would, give my left testicle to record AR Fox or work with him on shows, but that's a selfish thing. That's a Mark thing. That's solely from a fandom thing. If I'm looking from a casual fans aspect, I'm not going to put AR Fox on my marquee when I have Samoa Joe and Chris Jericho and John Moxley and MJF. You're just not going to do that. Sadly, a bit of bad news, unfortunately. The legendary referee Mills Lane passed away this week at the age of 85. His son Tommy told the Reno Gazette-Journal that his father passed away from being in hospice for the last week. Born in Georgia in 1937, Lane began his career in boxing as a fighter, starting while serving in the Marine Corps and later going 10-1 as a professional. Lane would almost even compete for the United States in the 1960 Olympics, though he was ultimately eliminated in the semi-finals of the Olympic trials. He would last fight in 1967 before going on to officiate his first boxing match in 1971. Though he officiated several major fights in his career, Lane is best remembered for refereeing the second fight between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson in 97. That sequel encounter famously saw Tyson bite Holyfield's ear. Not once, but twice, forcing Lane himself, who was a replacement referee for that fight, to disqualify Tyson. Lane would continue to referee for one more year before retiring. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2013. He would also transition to television. Many will probably recognize him most as the Judge Mills Lane character on the MTV cult hit series Celebrity Deathmatch, utilizing his catchphrase, "Let's get it on," and appearing alongside WWE legends Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mick Foley. Lane became arguably the de facto face of the show. He'd appear as part of the show until its first run ended in 2002. During that time, Mills would also make 2 wrestling appearances, WWE in November 98, and then later in WCW in 99, where he officiated a boxing match between Roddy Piper and Buff Bagwell. Rest in peace, the legendary Mills Lane. Any thoughts or memories on the great legend himself?
Didn't know much of him. Never been a huge boxing fan, but that iconic voice from Celebrity Deathmatch.
That's good too.
Yeah, just amazing, truly amazing. Also, fun little side fact: when we were just an audio podcast, I used to have the Celebrity Deathmatch closing theme to close the podcast because it just fucking kicked ass. So yeah, just bloody awesome, bloody awesome, and a great memory of my childhood was watching Celebrity Deathmatch with Mills Lane himself, who was such a prominent part of that and such an entertaining individual in a multitude of different things that he did. Right, NXT deadline is this weekend. We've had a quick look at Ring of Honor Final Battle. We know that UFC is going down. Of course, we don't cover MMA on this podcast because we just don't care enough. So we have 5 matches on tap. We'll start with a singles match between Alba Fire, formerly known as Kaylee Ray, and the outrageously sexy Isla Dawn. Who do we have winning this match? This, I do believe, is Isla Dawn's first prominent match in NXT since the NXT UK brand was disbanded. Did you just Google who Isla Dawn is?
No, I'm just looking at because I recognize some of the names, so I thought, yeah, I'd go for it.
Kaylee Ray, very prominent over here. She was the longest reigning NXT UK Women's Champion. Also, obviously, very well regarded for ICW in Scotland.
I think she's wrestled up in Morecambe. I think.
Yeah, she has.
Yeah, she was tremendous, absolutely amazing. Just because I think of how fucking amazing she is. Although Isla Dawn looks like she could kick shit out of her as well, so you know.
I'll go for Alba Fire. I think pull an upset.
I'm going to go with. I mean, Alba Fire wouldn't be an upset. Isla Dawn for me would be the upset, just because she's only just come in. But that being said, Isla Dawn is fucking incredible. I'm going to go with Isla Dawn because she's only just arrived. It wouldn't make sense for her to immediately job out to Alba Fire. The NXT Tag Team Championships will be on the line in easily the marquee match of the night. Pretty Deadly's Elton Prince and Kit Wilson defend their titles against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, the New Day.
Pretty Deadly.
Yeah.
Pretty Deadly.
This is to get them over as an even more prominent tag team.
But
and I think this will be a really good advertisement for how good they can be on Raw or SmackDown.
Is that all this is now? So they've kind of, the main shows have given up with New Day and they're just going, yeah, let's put them and get all the teams over.
I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago they lost the really prominent match against the Usos. If they'd beaten them, they would have stopped the famous tag team run. Now the Usos hold the record for the longest ever tag team title reign in WWE history. I think this is a good kind of stopgap for them until they can work out what they want them to do next. The problem with unifying the tag belts, of course, means that, well, one, it makes the tag team belts more prominent because ultimately there's only one set of tag team titles available for male wrestlers to go after in WWE's main roster, which is good. But then at the same time, it also means that wrestling tag teams like the New Day, if they're not involved in a rivalry with or going after the number one contendership for the tag titles, it kind of leaves them wandering around, not really knowing what to do. Potentially, maybe waiting for Big E to come back, who I think will probably return at the Royal Rumble. That's my prediction. So yeah, I mean, from a one match standalone booking, this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But from a long-term storytelling perspective, it doesn't really mean anything. But I do think Pretty Deadly will retain.
Yeah. It should be a banger.
Yeah, absolutely. A singles match.
I would watch New Day fucking wrestle a paper bag. I think they're fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So any match they're in is going to be great.
Yeah, one of the most prominent and spectacular tag teams of the modern era. Bron Breakker will defend the NXT Championship against Apollo Crews.
I just want to say I loved the diner segment on NXT last week. I really loved that segment.
What was that segment?
It was just Apollo Crews in a diner ordering food, and then I think Bron walked up, and they were basically just having a conversation, like just two athletes, like rivals, just 1-to-1.
Were they trying to mimic the famous scene between De Niro and Pacino from Heat? Is that what they were trying to go for?
It felt like it, yeah.
Or was it more Harry Met Sally?
No. It was definitely more Heat, but it was.
Crews just sat there pretending to have an orgasm.
Yeah.
It was a nice segment. I really enjoyed it. It's going to be Bron Breakker though.
Yeah. That's fair enough. So that leaves two highly prominent brand new matches. So we have a women's and a men's Iron Survivor match. I need to find the rules for these because I'm not entirely clued up myself.
I've got the rules.
Go for it, mate. Go on then.
Okay, so the two wrestlers start the match, and every 5 minutes, another wrestler enters until all 5 participants are present. So a bit like War Games. After the last wrestler enters, there is a predetermined time limit, which I think they said is like 25 minutes or something.
25 minutes, yeah.
Oh, that's a long match, isn't it?
Yeah. Then each time a wrestler scores a pinfall, submission, or being the victim of a disqualification, they gain a point. A wrestler who is pinned, submitted, or is disqualified goes into a penalty box for 90 seconds. And then the winner of the match is the wrestler who scores the most points at the end of the time limit, and then the winners become the number one contenders.
So, like you've said before, very much like TNA's King of the Mountain match in premise, to a certain degree, at least, but there's no ladder, obviously.
It was cool until I read about the penalty box, because I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. And then each time someone scores a pinfall or submission, they get a point, and then at the end, whoever gets the most points wins. I'm like, okay, that's cool. Then as soon as I read about the penalty box, I'm like, that kind of ruins it.
For me, it sounds very over convoluted and something that might confuse a casual fan who might potentially watch it. It feels like it's very much something like, obviously we can't really tell until we actually see it in action to see whether it works or not. But my principle, for instance, War Games might sound convoluted, but it's actually quite simple. Each guy comes in every 3 or 4 minutes until everybody's in the ring, and then we start the match, and whoever gets the pinfall wins for their team. Simple as that. Whereas with this, it's like, okay, so every 5 minutes another person joins, so that's 15 minutes where until you've got all 5 people in the ring. Then you've got another 25 minutes of wrestling, and you're going to do this twice. So I've got to think this pay-per-view is probably going to go quite long compared to what it normally does. I think your argument of it going 2.5 hours might go out the window, because it looks like each match is going to take up, including entrances and build, you're looking at close to an hour for each match.
Yeah.
Good or bad for business?
I think, like I was saying the other week, when we were talking about, us in the UK getting pay-per-views, I said that it would be a good idea to have something that stood out. This would be the type of match that could stand out in a show like this. It might be. I think it's a good idea to have it on an NXT show. You might not get the, Royal Rumble numbers, but you're still going to get an amount of people, and they'll be able to tell you whether it's good or not, and then you can start building it up in your next shows.
Both matches are for number one contenderships for the titles. They're not for the belts themselves.
Yeah.
Do you think that diminishes the idea of brand new match concepts slightly? particularly when you consider that the NXT Women's Championship is not being defended at all on this show, but there will be a number one contenders match for
it. I don't think it does, because one thing that's always annoyed me is these big matches to get the belt. I don't know why, but it's always pissed me off, of just like huge matches to get the belt, and unless it's a belt that hasn't got a champion yet, I can kind of understand that bit. But otherwise it's, I think having a handicap match with loads of people, it's either going to go one of two ways, obviously, but it depends who the name is at that point. And I think that's the reason it pisses me off. Because, back when Bobby Lashley was fucking doing everything, if he was in a handicap match, he'd fucking win. You'd know that before you went in. Whereas these matches to decide a number one contender, that gives a bit more weight behind it.
Well, for the NXT Women's Championship number one contendership, the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge will feature Zoe Stark, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, Kiana James, and Indy Hartwell. Admittedly, NXT, the idea of NXT is not necessarily to see high-branded, high-end marquee names. It's to build them for the main roster, so to speak. So it is some form of developmental, even though it is still a televised product. Who is most likely for you going to come out as the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship?
I'll give this one to Tanvir because I don't know any of the names.
I'm gonna say Indy Hartwell.
I've got Roxanne Perez.
It's between one of them, because Cora Jade's a heel, right? Or bad person.
Yes, she's a bad person.
Yeah.
She's a heel. I love how you put the definition next to it.
I knew that one.
Bad person.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know much about wrestling, I know what a heel is.
No, it's because of like William Regal's is like just links you up and how he hates the word heel. I'm like, yeah, bad person.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ingrained in the culture of what.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think Roxanne Perez. I loved her match with Rhea Ripley, and also she made an appearance on SmackDown in a 6 women's tag team match recently, and just they gave her so much time. It was a really good example of how to make somebody look like a star who's not a star yet. It really stood out to me. She has the potential to be the next big thing in terms of plucky underdog baby faces. She's very likable, she's very cute, she's a little bit shorter in stature, but she's got great physicality. The match with Cora Jade, which was a weapons match of sorts, a street fight at Halloween Havoc, really showed that she had a lot more than just being a plucky underdog. She also could tap into that more ferocious nature and bring a little bit more violence to the scene. I think that she's ready to take on, and also she's the perfect opponent for the current NXT Women's Champion Mandy Rose, this absolute blonde bombshell, the pinnacle of what many people see a pin-up woman to look like. So Roxanne Perez is the perfect antithesis of that. This cute underdog. She's got the diversity as well, being of obviously Latin American descent. She just has a lot going for her. And I think that she perfectly complements the much darker, much more menacing, much more obnoxious nature of what Mandy Rose is supposed to be, which is essentially a ludicrous supermodel who dominates not only with her physicality, but also uses her looks and her advantages with how she looks to get where she is in the company. So for me, from a storytelling perspective, I think Roxanne Perez is the perfect opponent for her. In the men's one, a little bit more, shall we say, marquee heavy, or at least guys that might be slightly more recognizable to some. Although, that being said, still, they've gone for some rather unique options here. Carmelo Hayes, JD McDonough, who people will recognize as Jordan Devlin for the UK indie scene, and of course, OTT prominently, as well as NXT UK. Grayson Waller, the Australian. Joe Gacy, who some people are calling B-Tech Bray Wyatt, and not to mention he looks like he could be Kevin Owens' body double, given the opportunity. And Axiom, which I do believe is A-Kid from NXT UK, who is one of the most ludicrously talented wrestlers, but unfortunately has lost a lot of the ability to be a character because he's been stuck behind a whopping great mask. The gimmick with him being essentially that he is something out of the Matrix, a video game-esque character that flies around like absolutely crazy, doing crazy athletic things. Which one of these men is best suited to face the winner of Bron Breakker or Apollo Crews for the NXT Championship later down the line?
I just like the look of the guy who looks like a Power Ranger. So then that one.
Axiom.
Axiom, yeah.
I quickly looked through Bron Breakker's cage match thing of like all his previous matches, and I'm gonna go with Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, he's already faced JD McDonough in a triple threat, where JD McDonough also the other individual, that was Ilya Dragunov. People will recognize him quite well. Prominent NXT UK champion, had the famous pair of matches with Volta before Volta became Gunter. It's hard to argue that, to be honest. I don't think JD McDonough will win because he's already been a triple threat, like I said. Grayson Waller is a fantastic, obnoxious gobshite of a heel. I don't feel like he's a marquee level talent, though. Axiom is an incredible athlete, but literally he doesn't talk. And when he does, it's very fleeting. He's not entertaining in the slightest from a character standpoint. All his entertainment comes from his wrestling. And if you're putting him on the marquee and you're saying, hey, here's the main event guy, you need somebody who can carry it. Joe Gacy has also faced Bron Breakker a couple of times as well, which leaves Carmelo Hayes, who is brilliant as the obnoxious kind of high-end baller kind of, African-American character. He seems to fit the bill.
It makes sense as well, because, I mean, he's just lost the North American title, so now it's like, okay, time to move on to the next step, which would be the main NXT belt.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, isn't it? Because when you lose, so in my mind, if I see you lose the mid-card belt in this day and age, that says to me that you are not worthy of being in the main event. But then if you look at it from a historical perspective, the IC title, which was an incredibly prominent belt, Austin, The Rock, Triple H, they all had that belt before they had the heavyweight title. And the ironic thing is that you've got to get rid of that belt to move on to the next belt. So what you need to do is make sure that they've had a prominent run with it and feel strong before they drop it. For me, Carmelo Hayes has dropped the belt, the North American Championship, way too many times. So that's the one thing that makes me slightly uneasy is, are the fans going to believe him as a credible threat to Bron Breakker, who is a monster?
It's one of my favorite thing bringing up the mid-card belts. My favorite thing is Option C in Impact. I love Option C of like, okay, I've had the X Division title for so long. It's time to move on.
But you don't drop it, do you? You upgrade, don't you? Because what you're essentially saying is, I'm so strong as the Impact, X Division champion that I can cash that in for a title shot. Yeah. So that's their version of Money in the Bank. So that's different because you're not dropping the belts per se. You're giving it up to move up another level.
Yeah, I think Carmelo Hayes v Bron Breakker will be a good little be a good feud. I think going ahead.
Trick Williams still in his corner?
I think so.
Okay. Honestly. Yeah, that might help as well, because that gives, a little bit more, because obviously Bron Breakker from a size thing looks like he could snap all these guys in two. But then it's also that thing of Carmelo Hayes is an incredible athlete. His gimmick is that he never misses twice, which isn't necessarily all. I mean, okay, great. But it's also that thing of, if you've got Trick Williams at ringside, it kind of helps equalize the nature of the physicality going on there. So, yeah, I'd like to see JD McDonough do more great things, because I was such a huge fan of him on the indies, had the chance to work on shows alongside him, not obviously wrestling him, but working on the same shows as Ring Crew and stuff like that with him. And, he was always very, very good to me. I know he does come with, unfortunately, a lot of baggage due to the speaking out movement. His name was mentioned in it, although there was no proof of what, basically there was no evidence to suggest that, that he had done anything that was suggested of him. So I guess, it depends on where your morals and your ethical compass lies there. But yeah, no, Carmelo Hayes looks like a decent bet. And to be honest, I feel like the NXT pay-per-view here, 5 matches, definitely looks like a much more intriguing and interesting watch than Ring of Honor Final Battle, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Any final thoughts on this pay-per-view?
It'd be a good watch. It would be a good watch. I'm genuinely interested in the new match.
I unfortunately won't be able to watch it live, but I'll watch it back probably because I'm going to see something that Mark hates.
What, Lord of the Rings?
I'm doing the Lord of the Rings extended editions marathon that day.
Oh, mate.
I love it. I'm sorry.
I'm
I
gonna
love
go and get a
Lord of the
drink
Rings.
and leave you two to have a go at it, Joe.
Dude, I mean, if you wanted to waste your time.
I love it so much. I think it's more because it's like I grew up with Lord of the Rings and I just love it so much. So when you said you hated it and you gave your reasons, I'm like, that's fair enough. I can fully see that, which is like fair. But I love it. They're near and dear to my heart.
You're allowed, and as I say, I've tried to watch it again,
which is fair enough.
I really have.
Yeah, like that's the one
Fuck
thing
me.
that I'll like commend you on. Of like, at least you tried. Like you didn't just like offer it, which is like fair enough. Hey, you gave it a shot. You didn't like it. Fair enough.
One thing I will say about it is I don't think it's as bad as Avatar. Because at least with Lord of the Rings, there is story behind the walking and the nice visuals, whereas Avatar is just nice visuals.
Yeah, and I don't like what James Cameron said about Way of the Water, because people are saying about like if they need to go for the pee break, he's like, he basically what he was saying is, I hope people go for a piss so then they buy another ticket to see the film, which is like, no. It's why you do the Bollywood thing and you have a break halfway through.
It's because he's a bellend.
Yeah.
Unobtainium, mate.
Yes.
Unobtainium. If all his thought and stuff went into the visuals of it, and then he started writing the script and went, I can't think of
Unobtainium.
We're talking about Avatar or Lord of the Rings?
Avatar.
I was going to say, because Lord of the Rings, like the original kind of books, I think are masterpieces.
The original books are great, and that's why I say I prefer the story of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I appreciate the story of Lord of the Rings, even though I find it as dull as playing with my dingleberries. But
that's fair enough.
I don't find playing with your dingleberries to be dull whatsoever. So maybe it's a self-deprecation.
Sloppy toppy.
Sloppy toppy. Marvelous. Well, we transition on there's no way of transitioning, well to something like this. Richard Holiday reveals that he has been battling Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4. People will recognize him as the MLW star and also somebody who recently faced Alex Hammerstone in the main event for the MLW championship. Just quickly, we wish Richard Holiday well, and hopefully we'll see him recover in due course. Richard Holloway, part of course of First Time Ever Events, who I've worked for as a graphic designer, and also have two very close friends in Jake Holiday and Franco Varga, who predominantly run that company, which is very, very cool. Time for some lists, boys, before we wrap things up. So I have a list here of the 12 top-ranked greatest heel turns in pro wrestling history. I appreciate that if you're not an encyclopedic legend like Carl Wilkinson when it comes to wrestling, like yourself, SilentMark, you may not necessarily recognize all of them. So I'm happy for you to just pass on them if you're not aware. What I want you guys to tell me is whether you think these are truly all-time great heel turns and whether they are deserving of being in the place of the greatest of all time in terms of heel turns. So we start with number 12, Tommaso Ciampa claiming his moment, turning on Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver.
It's up there because you had DIY the Revival and all their great moments and matches together, them facing each other in the Cruiserweight Classic as well. So all this build up, and then for Ciampa to stab him in the back, it was like, oh gee, like it hit you in the heart if you'd followed NXT as much as I think a lot of people did then. So it's up there, and then it led to Ciampa not having a theme and then just having his entrance be the crowd booing, which was masterful.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Mark?
Nope.
Not a problem. We move on to number 11. Austin Idol betraying Jerry Lawler. I feel like this is going to be an obscure one for anyone who doesn't really watch old school AWA. Yeah, so basically in the American Wrestling Association, which is very famous for prominent stars like the Road Warriors, who were obviously known as Legion of Doom later down the line. A lot of great wrestlers went through it. One such example of its high quality professional wrestling was the legendary blood feud between Jerry the King Lawler and Austin Idol. In the winter of '87, Idol would betray Lawler. He would follow up this shocking turn by claiming the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship in the finals of a multi-man tournament. This newfound gold would place Idol back in the crosshairs of Lawler, who claimed the title that April in a brutal chain match. As nobody's seen it, it is a great heel turn. Check it out. It's very good. But obviously, nobody's seen it. One for Tanvir, definitely here. Kevin Steen betraying El Generico in Ring of Honor.
It is great, and the fact that it's still going on to this day. And I think Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen, he referenced it of like he doesn't blame Sami Zayn for turning on him because of the amount of times he's done it in the past. It is a masterful heel turn.
Yeah, this is the first time that these two, betrayed each other. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn on the Indies. It's definitely worth checking out. It really is. Prince Devitt forming the Bullet Club.
Ooh.
Of course, we know as Finn Balor. So obviously, the initial formation of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was the first truly Gaijin heel faction, really be prominent in Japanese wrestling.
Yeah. So this was awesome at the time because the thing is, you had Apollo 66, which was Taguchi and Devitt, and they were an amazing tag team, having great matches with the likes of the Golden Lovers, and I think Taiji Ishimori and ACH having great matches. And then for Devitt to just turn on Taguchi like that, and then you have Carl Anderson, Tama Tonga, and then Bad Luck Fale come in, and then just Devitt sitting on Fale's shoulders all the time, and the fact that Bullet Club's still going on nowadays, it is a really like smart heel turn, and it's what I think put Prince Devitt in WWE's radar. Because he was cutting masterful promos. He was great in the ring. So,
yeah, great for branding. What do you think, Mark? Bullet Club for me? Deserves to be in there as one of the all-time great heel moments.
I'd say so because it matters so much still now. You know, it's not a fair weather thing. It still fucking matters.
I mean, it also is probably one of the most prominent moments that has set up the rest of the historical impact of New Japan Pro Wrestling in the Western civilization's eyes. I think it brought a lot of people who didn't care about it or just thought, oh, that's Japanese wrestling, we don't watch that. And all of a sudden they were like, huh? That looks pretty cool. Let's have a look at that.
The thing was with Bullet Club of when it first happened was that, oh, okay, it's a cool thing. Then when Devitt left to go to WWE, it was like, oh, okay. But then you had AJ Styles come in to take over Bullet Club, and that got everybody on New Japan radar because like, oh, AJ Styles is there. Let's go watch him.
Yeah, it's ingrained in the history of modern wrestling. To this day, you can go to any show and you will see a Bullet Club shirt. Any kind of indie show. I'm sure Mark's probably even seen Bullet Club shirts at Odyssey. It's one of those things. At one point, it was the coolest thing to wear. It's like the Oakland Raiders cap. NWA made that prominent with Ice Cube, obviously, and it's one of those things where, yes, the Oakland Raiders have always had a very famous fan base in American football, but that transcended that. It went beyond just being a fashion accessory for that. All of a sudden, very much like Dre's Beats, the headphones and things like that. People see them on prominent individuals, characters. Same with trainers with Michael Jordan, obviously with the Air Jordans. The Bullet Club t-shirt is the equivalent of that for professional wrestling. One that I thought might be higher, actually, and one that even Mark will probably recognize, is the breakup of the Rockers when Shawn Michaels superkicked Marty Jannetty and stuffed his head through the glass window on the barbershop segment. Obviously, an incredible moment. Nobody's going to deny that. Do you think it should be higher?
Depends what's further up.
That's very true. It is. Well, when you see what number 7 is, I'm surprised that it wasn't higher than number 7 at least. Number 7 also involves Shawn Michaels being turned on by Chris Jericho in 2008. This angle also involved Chris Jericho accidentally punching Shawn Michaels' wife in the face which he actually legitimately did. He was meant to be a kayfabe punch, and he legitimately gave her a black eye. And Jericho, the story famously goes that Jericho was back. This isn't actually written in. I've just remembered this from years and years of watching wrestling. Famously backstage, Jericho shitting his pants backstage, thinking, "Oh shit!" When Shawn Michaels comes, he's gonna kick my fucking ass. And Shawn Michaels comes steaming through the curtain, like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." Just gave my wife a black eye, and apparently Shawn Michaels' wife went, "Stop being a fucking pussy. It's professional wrestling," and basically got him off the hook from it and took it like a fucking champ.
That's pretty cool.
There you go. It was a great heel turn in the moment, but for me, I don't think it's a historic heel turn. I don't think it's something that's
not as important.
No, it's great in the moment, but for me, it has to be something that is true. Like if I go up to a casual wrestling fan now and say, "Tell me the greatest bad guy turns of all times," and I'm pretty sure what I think number one's going to be involving the NWO. I'd be surprised if it's not. But it's that thing of, and nobody's really going to mention that as one of the more prominent ones, even in the modern era. I feel like there's been better ones.
I think Shawn Michaels turning, doing the Rockers thing is still like one of the most shown clips on like TV every now and again.
Yeah, they still show it all the time on WWE Network and everything.
Because it is such a prolific moment. So I'd say it's up there as like maybe a number 3.
Number 6, the Mega Powers explode, brother. Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan combust. Very famously, obviously, which led to their famous title match at WrestleMania. But WrestleMania 4 would obviously be the coronation of Savage as the top guy with Hogan's help. He would successfully claim the WWF title. This would lead to a successful year-long run for Savage as a champion. Also teaming with Hogan as the Mega Powers. Things would take a turn, however, when Savage's manager, the lovely Miss Elizabeth, began escorting the Hulkster as well. And of course, Savage in real life was famously rather jealous of anyone going near his wife, rightfully so, when they're that beautiful, I guess. And of course, this work played into the storyline very well, where Savage turned on Hogan due to jealousy.
It is a good one, because it has the fight at the back. Is Elizabeth trying to like stop him?
Yeah. It's historic. Again, it transcends wrestling. It's something that a lot of people remember, even non-wrestling fans. That's how I gauge the all-time great moments of wrestling, how many people remember it. So, pretty good. Number 5 is Stone Cold Steve Austin aligning himself with Vince McMahon at the end of WrestleMania 17, even though it wasn't a heel turn that good on the night, because unfortunately WrestleMania 17 was in Texas, which meant that Stone Cold had about 95% of the crowd behind him. So even when he turned heel, Vince McMahon helped him win the WWF Championship. The predominant portion of the crowd was still going bananas for him.
It's in his book, because I think he references that, and he even says it's one of his biggest regrets of doing that heel turn on that night.
He says that he wished he'd stunned him, didn't he, at the end, and just walked away, because it actually killed off his momentum as the true all-time babyface. From that point onwards, he never truly recaptured his position as the greatest wrestler in the world. I think, if anything, in some ways, it ended up being a passing of the torch and opened the window and the door for new talents. The Rock was already fairly prominent at that point, but Triple H came bursting through at that point and became a really high-end star. And
Mick Foley.
Mick Foley, to be fair, already had his run in 2000 for me. I think, just 2 years later, we had Randy Orton on the roster. We had Batista, The Undertaker, great things with Kane, and Rey Mysterio came in a year later as well. Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, all of these guys ascended to being the top guys after the fact. So it's in some ways, it's sad at the time, because Austin should have always been the greatest fucking tweener of all time, and he was. But it has opened the door for a lot of other.
In honor of Carl Anderson, I'll say his name, Goldberg.
The legend, Carl Anderson or Cameron Anderson?
Cameron Anderson, Jesus Christ.
Those are not related. I can absolutely tell. Also, shout out to Cameron Anderson for his autistic-like nature in our group chat. Number 4 is Andre the Giant aligning himself with Bobby Heenan, rather famously turning heel. And this, of course, led to the famous matchup at WrestleMania 3 between Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan, where Hulk Hogan rather famously lifted up Andre the Giant over his head and then farted on his face with his famous leg drop and won the WWF title back in front of 92,000 fans, brother.
Was the heel turn on Piper's Pit?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. I was trying to think. I was like, is it the heel turn? I think. Yeah, that's a big one.
Every single person that I've spoken to who watched wrestling very prominently when they were younger, older people, all say that it was the most shocking moment for them. So that in itself speaks volumes to it. I don't think it stood the test of time as well, because Andre the Giant's run in WWF was pretty bad, actually. People go back and watch it. I know he was historic because he was huge and he was the first true giant of wrestling. If you go back and watch his stuff in the 70s and early 80s, he was such a better worker and a better talent and even a better promo. He was really at the back end of his career, and you could tell he could barely move at this point. You know, he had the condition of gigantism, which is basically where your bones essentially outgrow your body, which is pretty fucking gnarly, and that sadly claimed his life later on. But yeah, he's remembered as a larger than life character. But for me, the heel turn itself isn't remembered nearly as much as Hulk Hogan famously beating him for the title at WrestleMania 3. So. Number 3, Mr. McMahon screws Bret Hart at 1997 Survivor Series. Probably the most important turn in history because of what it led to. It was the birth of the Attitude Era. It was the birth of Vince McMahon as we know him now, the fucking lunatic monster. Some would argue this should be number 1, but it's not.
I'm amazed it's not number 1, because now that you've like mentioned it again, it's like, yeah, Montreal Screwjob is like one of the most repeated moments in.
Even I know that one.
Yeah,
it is a huge one.
Bret screwed Bret. Famous. For me, I would argue it's number 1 because it completely shifted the landscape of what wrestling is. However, it isn't, according to Wrestling Inc. at least, the number 1 heel turn. There's 2 left. Number 2 might surprise a few people, but I think it's prominent because of the modern era. It's when Seth Rollins turned on the Shield and joined the Authority.
Yeah.
I'll go with that because I remember watching it.
Yeah, that was a big one too.
Yeah.
The Shield have been such a great run and beating Evolution, and then it's just, they're splitting.
Now look at them though, like even now, like it's one of those things. Initially, I looked at it and thought, "Oh fuck off, that's nowhere near top 10 for me." But then I realized what it afforded wrestling after the fact. Roman Reigns is now the most dominant wrestler of the modern era. Seth Rollins is the most prominent character on Raw. John Moxley has been a long-term and arguably the biggest face of AEW. So the 3 of those guys have done nothing but be successful.
I'd say that 2014, 2015 to 2016 run for Seth Rollins might be my favorite run as a wrestler in modern memory. I love that run so much.
Yeah. Number 1, as I predicted, is obviously Hulk Hogan joining the NWO as the 3rd man at WCW's, I believe, Bash at the Beach, was it? Yeah, Bash at the Beach, 1996. Hulk Hogan forming the NWO alongside Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, who were known as the Outsiders at the time. The greatest babyface in wrestling history turning heel.
It's
huge.
Huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
Any ones missing there that you think? My honorary mention will be Mark Henry famously in the salmon jacket turning on John Cena and becoming heel. I know it's not the most prominent, but it was so well done. We thought he was giving his retirement speech. Everyone was crying, chanting "Thank you, Mark," and "You deserve it." John Cena puts the WWE title over his shoulder because he never won it. Famously, he won the World Heavyweight Championship but never won the WWE title. And everyone was like, "Oh, what a beautiful moment!" And then he just picks him up for the world's strongest slam.
Yeah, it's not prominent, but it brings up recent memory because of what it led to was Daniel Bryan doing the heel turn, the low blow on AJ Styles to win the title because it led to the Planet's champion.
Yeah,
so that was a surprising one.
That was a surprise one.
Yeah, no, there's some good ones, but it's a good list. Right, just to wrap things up briefly, any other business? Is there anything you guys would like to talk about? Unless, of course, you want another list. I do have another list here, or we can save it for next week.
Save it for next week.
Yeah, save it for next week.
All right, any other business, gentlemen?
Save you having to get one.
Christmas is coming up.
What's this week's Christmas film?
I mean, I only ever recognise one Christmas film as the all-time greatest Christmas film, and that is Home Alone.
Wrong answer.
Home Alone is up there.
Really, is it wrong answer? If you say Elf, I will kick you off this podcast immediately.
No, Elf is overrated and a piece of
shit.
Elf
is the most overrated Christmas film of all time.
My go-to
Christmas Carol.
I'm not like a big like Christmas film watcher, so I haven't really like, seen too many.
Say the Muppets
Like,
Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Definitely top 3, but I think Home Alone is better for me. What do we think about Die Hard being up there as one of the all-time great Christmas films?
I've said this all week on my radio show. If people count Love Actually as a Christmas film,
Oh, they can get in the bin.
Die Hard is a fucking Christmas film.
I mean, Love Actually is a film based during Christmas.
Yes.
But it's like I hate Love Actually. I think it's crap.
I'll say.
I haven't seen Love Actually. That's the thing.
Don't waste your time. We threatened you to watch Blues Brothers. We will not threaten you to watch Love Actually. Like, do not waste your time.
Okay.
No. So yeah, Die Hard's a Christmas film. Any film set at Christmas.
Honorable mention for Christmas films: Krampus, brilliant.
Love it.
Love Krampus. Watch that. I don't like horror films, so if I enjoyed it, it must have been. It was very funny, but a little bit gory, but not over the top. I just thought it was a lot of fun and just popcorn bullshit, but it's actually really good, and I enjoy watching it over Christmas. I do. I like it.
I watched Christmas with the Cranks on Monday. That was fun. Yeah, I'd say my go-to Christmas film though is The Grinch. I do love The Grinch.
What, with Jim Carrey?
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, I like that.
I didn't.
That's fair enough.
I didn't. I tried.
Is that because he's done so many other films that are more famous, or is it just because it just doesn't hit with you as a Christmas?
It doesn't hit me. The newer version of The Grinch for me with Benedict Cumberbatch, the animated version.
I can imagine that's excellent.
I think that is a better version.
Okay. There's a Netflix Christmas film that came out a few years ago called Klaus. That was good.
Yes, heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Properly beautiful film.
I loved it because it's like the
Postman. I watched 3 on Saturday. I think I told you this the other day, Nick. I watched Black Christmas.
Haven't seen it.
Horror film. They've done 2 remakes. There was the original back in the 70s, which was, people called it like one of the birth of the slasher films.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stereotypical line of, they're calling from inside the house. That's where it came from. Then I watched Shazam.
Banger.
Because it's a fucking Christmas film.
What, the superhero movie?
Yeah.
Is it a Christmas? Oh yeah, I suppose because they go to that
Christmas.
thing, don't they? And there's Christmas stuff going on. Yeah. I actually really like Shazam. I think it's really
Shazam's
good.
A lot of fun.
Fucking great film. And then Better Watch Out.
Haven't seen that either.
I haven't heard of it.
I urge you to watch Better Watch Out.
I'm gonna Google.
Doesn't sound like a Christmas film. Sounds like something that would make children watch. But
on Monday, I watched an 80-year-old film. If you want to guess what it was.
With 80-year-olds, mate.
No. It wasn't.
No,
he's from one extreme to the other.
He's so desperate to get away from the FBI's 10 most wanted.
It's an 80-year-old film.
Now I'm into something much older.
It's a film that came out in 1942 that I went and saw on Monday.
Which is
Gone with the Wind, is it?
Casablanca.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really loved it.
But no, Better Watch Out. Set at Christmas, and a kid and his babysitter have people try and come in the home.
It's a 10 out of 10 already. It's got Patrick Warburton. It's got Gronk. 10 out of 10.
That's all I'm going to say. All I'm going to say is that
it's got Gronk.
Who? What? Rob Gronkowski?
No, it's Patrick Warburton.
I don't know who that is.
Joe Swanson from Family Guy.
Oh yes, no, I do know who he is. Yeah,
and The Tick.
I
still have yet to watch The Tick.
The original was good. The newer version on Amazon, that was really good.
I'm a fucking pussy with. I don't like horror films at all. They scare the shit out of me.
It's not a proper horror film.
Mark, I did something on your behalf because I listened to Silent and the Deaf Machine. Get Out's on Netflix, and I sent it to Nix. Watch Get Out.
Yep, someone watch Get Out. I need to watch that. I do like Us, his follow-up film.
Yeah.
That is. It scared the shit out of me, but it's one of my favorite horror films I've seen. The twist at the end is amazing. I love that.
Nope was really good this year, and I think
Nope was good.
I saw a recent Twitter thread because I think when I initially saw it, I was like, okay, this is good, and then I saw a Twitter thread of like that done a deep dive into it, and I'm like, oh, this film's really good. Now thinking back on it.
What about Bad Santa?
No, again, I think overrated for me.
I action hero a Christmas film.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if that's set at Christmas.
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. Trying to think what other great. So we always watch the Harry Potter films over Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Do they classify as Harry Potter? Because
some of them are
they
set
always
at
have a Christmas theme, but they're not Christmas films, if you know what I mean. But they always kind of have that.
I'm gonna throw one out there because I watched it at the beginning of this year, and it is actually a really good Christmas film, Santa Slays.
Is that the one with Goldberg?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
I asked Cam because I think he was saying about going to see Violent Night, and I'm like, Violent Night just
really want to say that.
It just looks like Santa Slays, and he's like, and Cam's gonna let me know what it.
How about the awful cult classic Jack Frost?
That's left Netflix.
Is that during Christmas or is that just cold? I can't remember if it's. I've only seen it the once.
Is that the horror one or the one with Michael?
The horror one where he appears in the bath with what's her name, and it fucking essentially rapes her with a carrot.
Yeah, the soul that flew into a snowman. Nightmare Before Christmas.
I've got a theory about Nightmare Before Christmas.
Is it that all the Tim Burton films are linked in a way? So it's okay.
No, Nightmare Before Christmas is Tim Burton's cry for help.
Okay, I want to listen to this now.
I haven't seen Nightmare Before Christmas.
So, Nightmare Before Christmas is about Jack Skellington, who's like kind of the head of Halloween Land, finds himself in Christmas Land. And he doesn't know what the fuck's going on, but he quite likes the idea of it. He likes the whole fluffiness of it. So he goes back to Halloween Land and goes, right, we need to have Christmas. And everyone goes, oh, there's that to ruin it. And he goes, yeah, to ruin it. No, he just really wants it. That's Tim Burton.
Okay.
Tim Burton is sick, or was sick, of always being known as the dark person and didn't want to make any more dark stories and stuff. But people keep on expecting it of him. He's
made Wednesday, right? And it's just dropped on Netflix.
Wednesday was good.
Apparently, apparently everyone I've spoken to said I've seen the only thing I've seen because it was on the TikTok was the dance scene where she's dancing with a guy.
It had a bit of a slow start, to be honest, because I think I watched the first two episodes. And I was like, okay, and then
I was hooked with the first one, to be honest.
I like the first one. I think the thing that threw me, but by the end of it, I got used to it. Was seeing Luis Guzman has Gomez. That really threw me off initially. I'm like, that doesn't seem like
everyone's used to the famous.
We're all used to
Raul Sylvia or Tim Curry.
Yeah,
Adam's Family. Is it Reunion?
We don't talk about that one.
Yeah,
we don't talk about that one.
Yeah,
no, the original.
M. Bison
drawings of the Adams Family.
That's what I remember him as, M. Bison. By the way, the Street Fighter movie is good. I don't care.
It's such an iconic line.
I love it. Kylie Minogue is Cammy, looking hot as bollocks.
The day Bison,
Come on, man.
It's amazing. The day Bison graced her village was the greatest day of her life. For him, it was just a Tuesday.
E Honda. They should have got Yokozuna to play him. It would have been amazing. He's spot on. I really like that. I love that film. It's stupid, but it's really
good.
Fun. It's fun, you know. It makes you smile. That film. It's Van Damme as Guile that stands out to me because it's just the last person you'd expect to play him is a Belgian
Sonic Boom.
I like it. I think it's great. And M. Bison makes it for me. He's amazing as the super villain. Absolutely amazing. He would have been incredible, that guy, in modern Marvel films as a villain, I think.
Oh, he really would.
He would have been an awesome Doctor Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him as like a, he would have, Doctor Doom would be fucking awesome for him. I'd love to see him play. Sadly, he won't now because he's passed on, bless him. But
phenomenal. I just quote that M. Bison line so much. It's like, but for me, it was Tuesday. It's like, it's just so cold of like, he did not give a fuck.
Yeah, it is so good. He's just looking, he goes, but for me, it was Tuesday. It's so good. I love it. It's fucking brilliant. I have a real hard on for old school martial arts style action films anyway. I love
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport is one of my all-time favorite films. I love Bloodsport. The film itself is crap. The fight scenes are amazing.
I watched Bloodsport I think last year because I saw it was on Amazon Prime and you talked about it non-stop. So I'm like, let me watch it.
It just got removed off Netflix a couple of months ago, and I watched it about 6 times just to keep it fresh in the memory. I just love it.
Chong Li.
I love Kickboxer. That's fucking great. I love the Universal Soldiers.
Have you seen The Raid?
No.
No, I want to.
You'd love it.
It's been on my list for fucking ages.
It's so good. And it's the one thing that pissed me off about the Star Wars sequels, because when they announced that they had the cast of the Raid, they had the cast of the Raid involved in the Star Wars sequels, I think Force Awakens, and I was like, oh, there's going to be some badass fight scenes in this. And then
have you seen Universal Soldier 2 with Goldberg?
No, I haven't.
I hate that guy. So funny.
Would
It's all about where, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme, basically, he's a unisoldier that is trying to kill Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is the only unisoul that's somehow been converted back into being just a normal human. And Goldberg's trying to take him out, and he even spears a security guard. Like
to harken back to one of our old lists, Goldberg, success in Hollywood?
I mean, he's in Longest Yard, and he's quite funny in that. It depends on how you define a success. Has he made shitloads of money? No. Has he had roles that are fairly memorable? Yes. So depends how you want to look at it.
You know, one wrestler that I'm kind of gutted, but I saw him in a film recently that we left off. Great Khali. I saw him in Get Smart.
Yes.
He's also in a thing. He's in
Longest Yard, because I saw him in Get Smart, and I'm like, wait, is that who I think it is? And I'm like, it's fucking Great Khali.
And he's just as fucking wooden.
Yeah.
The only, like, literally, that big boot he gives Bob Sapp in Longest Yard is arguably the greatest thing I've ever seen him do from an athletic standpoint.
I just love the line in Get Smart when he's hugging Steve Carell and he's like, she's such a bitch.
There you go. Well, Christmas is definitely coming. We'll have to do some with our games nights that people are probably aware of by now. We'll have to do some watch a film together on Discord or something. Just for a giggle.
Yes.
Watch some films. That'd be a laugh. But I think we'll leave it there, because I know that poor old SilentMark needs to be in bed at a reasonable hour, and it is 10 to 11 right now. So
I'm an old man.
Yeah, we're all older.
I'm a young boy.
And Tanvir apparently is.
No, you like young boys.
Happy days. That's his new thing. The Granny Basher, Tanvir Verdi. It's good stuff. Soon to be on the anti-FBI top 10 most wanted list.
I asked it to Kyle, but on Quiplash, seeing some of our answers, we need to ask each other, like, who hurt us that we got to this point?
All of us, we all hurt each other, mate. That's how it is. For anyone listening who's intrigued by the concept of Wrestle Plug Games Night, we have a games night. We have it every Sunday and sometimes in midweek as well at 7 p.m. We'll definitely do one this Sunday because there'll be no football on, because the quarterfinals are on Friday and Saturday. Yes, very good. I'm not sure whether to be aroused or disturbed, to be honest. Also, you look suspiciously like Robbie Nitro behind me when you do that, which is not a good thing.
Well, Robbie Nitro, sloppy toppy.
Sloppy Toppy Nitro that should never ever mention Sloppy Toppy and Robbie Nitro in the same goddamn fucking sentence again, or I will personally have you flayed alive.
I got one of my answers in Quiplash, Redley. One of my answers in Quiplash.
Unbelievable. But yeah, no, if anyone wants to join us with, for all the shits and giggles, we do a games night. We're going to do movie watch alongs and just stuff to keep people entertained over Christmas, because it's not always the happiest time for everybody. So if you want an escape from the loneliness or the divisiveness of what Christmas is, we offer a lot of fun and a lot of stuff to do outside of the podcast itself. So come and join us. Thank you very much to Tanvir Verdi and SilentMark for joining me for the State of Wrestling address this week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me once again. Always a pleasure, sir.
Absolutely a pleasure. I've been Aeron. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you do want to catch up with me at a wrestling show, I'll be at Rumble Wrestling on December the 27th. They'll be in Kemsley in Kent. It's going to be a fantastic card. We have, I believe, Danny Black and Tate Mayfair's in the house. There will be a rematch for the title. I do believe that Tate Mayfair's will be pulling double duty at that show and will be facing not only Danny Black, but also Sid Manelli in a blindfold match, which would be fantastic for everyone involved. I might be at Rise Underground December the 17th. It depends on train strikes right now, so I can't confirm as to whether that will be the case or not. But if it does go ahead, I will be at that one as well. And then hopefully I'll be back at Rise in January. If you want to check out SilentMark at Odyssey Pro Wrestling, I believe their next show is on February the 4th. Yes.
Our last show, Panic Stations, is now on our Patreon. Patreon.com/Odyssey Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, you can watch all of Odyssey Pro Wrestling shows £3 a month on Patreon. So I highly recommend you check that out. Some wonderful talents, including Progress Wrestling stars, Alexis Falcons on there, RPD, number of great talents. For some reason, that triggered my Amazon Echo for no apparent reason. just got excited by. I mean, don't we all get excited by Alexis Falcon? Let's be honest. But yeah, and obviously Tanvir Verde, if you want to find him, he'll just be on the internet and at random cinemas watching extremely long Hollywood blockbusters like Lord of the Rings.
I'll be watching Avatar in a few weeks and I'll regret it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I've only watched Avatar once, and that was when I went to see it in the cinema in 3D, which, by the way, hurt my neck because I was in the front row. Wasn't that great an experience watching it in 3D. Yeah, just feels like a film that is literally just for CGI. But that's for another day, ladies and gentlemen. Like I've said, I've been Aeron Nix. He's been Tanvir Verde. He's been SilentMark. And we'll catch you very soon for more content from the Wrestle Plug.
Shoot you, sir.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Get on there.
Whoa.
No,
Stop that shit.
Stop that. Stop sexualizing Robbie Nitro. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Get out. Out now.
Dirty boy.
Dirty boy.
I'm sorry.
Dirty boy.
To your room.
Yeah, a t-shirt.
I'm in my room.
It says, I'm a very dirty boy. Don't clean your room.
Knowledge we are prey on. Over.